All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you from a bit of a cloudy San Diego, actually. But today I'm delighted to be joined from over on the other coast, from Maryland, Matt McDarby. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, John. It's great to see you again. It's
Yeah.
been weeks.
Yeah, I've just been
So,
on Matt's podcast and Matt's been on mine before, and we used to work together. So if you think, wow, he seems to know a lot about Matt, that's just, we have quite a history. And Matt is a sales leader, talent developer, and he's the creator of the Sales Leader Operating System. He founded United Sales Resources in 2010 to provide leadership training, coaching, and advisory services to SMB and large enterprises, and he helps sales managers all levels, frontline leaders, leaders of leaders, heads of sales, raise their game and drive better performance. What I was really interested in, Matt, is,
mhm.
last time we probably uh, spoke about sales leadership was probably before the whole AI wave crashed
Sure.
over, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's having, AI is having a big impact, maybe a psychological impact for a lot of sales leaders. Maybe they just don't know what to do with it. Maybe they have people on their team who are like early adopters and they're using tools and they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to systematize. So
Yeah.
in your business, as you've been talking to sales leaders, what has been the reaction to this whole AI revolution?
Yeah. Well, one thing that's evident is this sword has two edges to it, for sure, right? So on one hand, if I think about, what am I hearing from sales managers, right? Is essentially the question, and it's a twofold challenge, right? It's how do I help my reps to understand how this changes what's expected of them. If
Mhm.
they should be, if I expect that they should be making use of tools that we've given them, as part of our sort of in-house tech stack, I've got to be pretty smart about those tools and how they
Mhm.
work and how they can make them both more efficient and hopefully more effective. But if I don't really understand how these tools work, like, right? So, what used to be a fairly straightforward task of explaining to people how the job is to be done, and here's what's expected in terms of activity. Here's what we need to do to be able to be effective when we're in front of customers, whether it's digitally or in person. Now all of a sudden we have to think about how we're leveraging the tools that I've given you, or you need to think about the tools that you just decided to start using on your own, because so many of these tools are just in the hands of salespeople because they're cheap and easy to get, right? So I think that's we can come back to that, but
Mhm.
first is, how do I help my people understand how to make best use of these
Right.
AI enhanced tools?
Mhm.
And then, there are a lot of businesses, obviously, that where the marketplace has been affected by the
Sure.
influx of AI, right? And figuring out, does this have any impact on how we compete? If
Mm.
you're in a business that is, sort of content related or content dependent,
Right.
all
Yeah.
of a sudden,
Absolutely.
do we have a hill to climb regarding the value of what we sell, and how do we do that? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, are still trying to make sense of what is the impact on
Yeah.
sales performance.
And what's interesting is it's always been that case, as we know, been, in the sales performance improvement business, and that is that if your sales leaders and managers, if they don't feel comfortable with something, whether it's a methodology or whatever, they're reluctant to introduce it or to push it. And I'm sure the same thing is with AI now. There's probably some reluctance from sales leaders because they're not experts in it. They don't know how to use it. So they don't really know how to tell their people how to use it. So maybe there's a little bit of reticence.
Yeah, for sure. And for a lot of salespeople, they're trying to make sense of, I used to be really good at this, and now all of a sudden I'm finding that it's, maybe there are people that weren't, they were just average, or maybe they were just almost as good as I was, that seem
Mhm.
to be getting a lot more done and seem to be better prepared than they were in the past. And I'm like, this is my personal competitive differentiation just
Yeah.
vanished, right? So how do you help me, boss? I got to figure out how to turn this around.
Yeah. And are you seeing, are you picking up like people being maybe a little bit worried about their future, their job, their role, how it's evolving, whether they're, I mean, because we've all heard that, oh, AI is going to replace everybody. Well, it's not really,
No.
but it does put some onus on you to maybe upskill a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll just in my own example, right?
Hmm.
Speaking about my own business and what we're doing, because I think most sellers, certainly small business owners, because that's what I am, right?
Hmm.
Are trying to figure out how does this make us better? Because I have a choice, right? I could just fold up shop. I am one of those. Incidentally, I have one of those businesses that has some dependence, some
Hmm.
relationship to models, intellectual
Right.
property, and content, and so I had big concerns in the early going, like, oh, how are people really going to need us? Um, and it turns out the thing that ultimately companies have always hired us for in the 15 years that I've been doing this and this small team with me is not necessarily about the content, the what people are
Yeah.
learning. It's always been about the how.
Yeah.
How do we execute? How do we make sure salespeople understand what's expected? How do we tee up this change initiative in a way that's going to get full buy-in? And how do we coach and reinforce and integrate and all of that? And um, certainly for my business, we're using tools, examples, immediate examples, current examples are, we're leveraging AI to be able to churn out highly tailored, very specific and unique playbooks for sales
Right.
organizations and sales manager playbooks. Um, and a process that used to take 10, 12 weeks now takes 3.
Yeah,
Right?
and also, and if you think about it too, is that was always the balancing act in the past was how heavily do you customize things, because customization and making things bespoke takes a lot of time, effort, and cost.
Mhm.
Now, probably with these tools, you can customize to a higher level without incurring that same level of time and cost.
That's right. Plus, remember, I just said we go from 10 weeks to 3. That
Mhm.
means there's 7 weeks now we can invest more fully in the actual rollout and the
Mhm.
communication plan and launch. So it not only means we can start change initiatives a little sooner, a little earlier,
Mhm.
we actually have more time to invest in getting that sort of upfront stuff right. So in the end, a playbook in the modern sense, we've been talking about playbooks for 20 years, right? Or
Yeah.
probably longer in sales organizations. And all they really are at this point is a really effective way of capturing a moment in time. Like,
Yeah.
this is how the job is to be done now. We're going to leave it this way for a quarter or two and see how we have to adapt. But the
Yeah.
beauty of having AI involved in the development of these tools is if there are changes, little wrinkles, a new product, it's not, you don't have to sort of tear the whole thing down. It's a lot easier to efficiently update and make that playbook more relevant,
Mhm.
at the end of the beginning of the next quarter. Why? Because the expectations just change. So I think
Yeah.
generally speaking, the impact for sellers and sales managers, that relationship, I think, can be strengthened
Yeah.
now that we have tools like this that just make what was before a really onerous, labor intensive effort. Now we're like, okay, we can do this a little closer to the speed of thought, right? And that's, I know, in our practice how we're using these tools.
Yeah, and what I like about that is that's really kind of where my head is at, with where it's where AI is helping you with all of these, if you like, almost the tactical stuff that needs to get done, the resource stuff.
Mhm.
But then it's allowing you to do the things that AI can't do right now, and that is bring all of your experience, the experience of your team, and as you said, invest more time on helping people adopt it and understand it and kind of embed it into their daily work practices and all of that. The stuff that you always, in many ways, the stuff that you always wanted to focus on, but you had to do all this other stuff to get there.
Yeah, that's right. The
Yeah.
thing that's yet to be determined is what's the impact on our relationship with customers, and where do we end and where do they begin? And
Mhm.
so we're, year 15 figuring that out again, right?
Yeah.
We have to kind of change and pay attention to how buyers want to work with us. And that is not a decision I'll be leaving up to AI, right? We
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
have to, we have to do that human creativity and critical thinking. So
Yeah, and I guess and it is you're right too. Is like obviously looking at a lot of sales organizations now, looking again now at their value proposition, it may be changing. I had an interesting experience actually, kind of a sad one for the people involved, but I was at a conference in Vegas about 2 years ago, Leads Con, and on the first day, one of the breakout sessions, because it was early in the whole AI wave at the time,
Mhm.
one of the first sessions was this guy got up and showed people how you can create blog content and stuff and all of this using AI. It was early days,
Mhm.
and everybody was like, "Wow, I've never seen this before." Most of those, and I went after that. I went to the exhibit hall, and there was about small businesses there that were all about like, "We'll write your blog content, we'll do this for you." And I just realized they literally their businesses they just went out of business after that breakout session.
Yeah.
'Cause nobody was going near their table because nobody saw the need anymore. So it is amazing how quickly things can change.
Yeah. Their business certainly changed, that's for sure. Hopefully, they were paying close enough attention and realizing that there was opportunity there
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
So for every well, I think in our, again, just using our business as an example, it's we have a choice. Either we, I guess we fold up the tent. We're like, oh well, I guess we don't produce content anymore, or we really focus on where our value is, and frankly, where it always was, which
Yeah.
is helping organizations to navigate change and get people working in the same direction. Leadership, right?
Mhm.
Sharpening our ability to lead people through change, and it's yet another time of change, right?
And I
So
think that's the interesting point here, isn't it, Matt? Because with the sales organizations, the change management piece is going to be really critical because not only do you have the new tools, maybe new ways of working, but you have a greater level, as we just mentioned, probably a greater level of trepidation than you've had in many years, where people are going, "Well, what does this really mean for me?" And you have the leadership who's had to say, how do we make all this work together, and how do we, because the other side of it too is, I mean, you can go full on here with AI and other technologies, but it can become chaotic and you can lose control very quickly.
mhm. Well, I think the I've got a few, I won't name names, but customers that are going through sales organizations that are going through the process of helping their teams, their salespeople to sort of navigate changes.
Mhm.
And some of them directly driven by new technology,
Yeah,
advances in their respective markets. Others just in response to, hey, we have to go about our jobs differently. And that was always a tough message. If I think about our time at Huthwaite years ago, it
sure.
was always a tough message to get salespeople to consume, where it was like, we need you to change, we need you to do things differently just because.
Hmm.
They were always looking for the rest of that. Well, no, but why? And the best message, and I think this is still true. In fact, I'd say for sure, I know it is still true today, is, we're asking you to make this change, but the reason is not because we're telling you or because AI
Mhm.
says or the technology has changed, but because our buyers expect something different from
Yeah.
us now. So, and what is it? Like, here's to the best of our ability, we're noticing our buyers are expecting our experience to look like this, this, and this.
Hmm.
And if you don't deliver that and your competitor does, so that's ultimately really the reason, Mr. or Mrs. Salesperson, why you have to adapt and change. It's because our market requires of it.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. Our market requires that of us.
Hmm.
So don't take my word for it, right? Either change and survive and thrive, or keep doing things the way you were, and you're going to find yourself not in this market anymore, right?
So do you see any maybe not new skills, but maybe any skills that sales leaders probably need to work on, and maybe ones that they need to bring to the fore that they didn't need before, or indeed, are there any new skills or traits that they need to adopt?
I don't know if it's new,
Hmm.
but I think the just practical application of how the reps are using their tools. I think there's probably a question managers need to be asking more regularly, and it's some version of, what did you do to prepare,
Yeah.
right? Because there's zero excuse for you to not know the deepest thoughts of the executive, the C-suite
Hmm.
of your target customer. Why? they're contributing, they're on podcasts, they're contributing to articles, they're like, you can synthesize. Before we started this conversation, you were telling me about another scenario where you're sort of, you're
Yeah.
using multiple points of reference and creating something, new that didn't exist before and doing it fairly quickly. I hear that. I'm like, well, yeah, we should be doing that when we're planning calls, when we're meeting important executives for the first time. We should be, this is intelligence that it took many, many, many hours and days to gather. So I think the bar has been set higher with regard to reps and how they
Mhm.
prepare. So managers listening, if you're not asking people, what did you do? Not leaning on me, but what did you do specifically, and to use the tools available to you, um, to be better prepared for this conversation. Explain that to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because yeah, I think that's, yeah, let's face it, that's where a lot of salespeople fall down, and I think that's even experienced ones because when you've been doing it for a long time, you sort of go, I don't really need to prep. I can wing this a bit, or I'm a good relationship builder, or whatever. And you can't do that anymore. I mean, and obviously, especially in higher end sales, because you're not selling to one person anyway, so that's
Right.
kind of silly to begin with. But I think that's really, I think a lot of salespeople are going to have to, and sales managers are going to have to revisit the fundamentals and say, no, like preparation is not just as important as ever. It's probably more important because you do have access to the information. And if I'm on the receiving end and you come to me and ask, I mean, I did have somebody recently in a different scenario start off by asking me if I could tell them something about myself, and I was literally going to go, no. No, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Go research me and then come back.
Yeah. Well, look, here's a quick anecdote, and it kind of goes back to your. I have a trade show or a conference horror story, but it's a little bit of a different angle. This was late last year. I'm sorry, late 2023 actually, um, and it was a pretty well-known sales industry trade show
Mhm.
conference. I won't mention who it was. Um, these guys have been around for a long time,
I'm
and
sure I can guess, but anyway, go
yeah,
on.
yeah, we won't do that. So, but one of the keynote speakers, literally right after the founder of this group gave his intro, the very next speaker, big important spot, very expensive spot, right?
Mhm.
Um, is the principal of a company that sells sales training, who, I think it was 75 minutes. It felt like an eternity, but essentially walked through. And this is an audience. Many of the people in the room are sales performance industry
Mhm.
practitioners, veterans, people have been through many, many cycles of change in this business, and also enablers, some decision makers, that people that buy sales training. And he proceeded to give a presentation on his method, which was some of the most remarkably manipulative, shocking training I've ever participated in. So much so, and you know me well enough, I'm pretty
Yeah,
low key. I keep things
yeah,
close to
yeah.
the vest most of the time. But I was literally sitting at a round table with other people, and I turned to one of the people at the table. I was like, "Is he putting us on? Like, I don't even understand what we're hearing here."
Mhm.
The reason I tell that story is it's 2000. What, it was 2023, 2024. Despite all the advances technologically, and there are still people out there who are willing to churn out crap at
Mhm.
hyper speed. And so for me, that's the good news, right? I'm like, you know what, I feel confident that what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and the sort of approach to leadership and development that we're introducing to sales managers sometimes for the first time is the right way. It's
Mhm.
effective. And if I can enable that with tools, and by all means, right, we can automate and speed it up. But um, think about your market. For those listening, there's probably people still on the low end of your market that are just, it's lowest common denominator. They're not super interested in the quality of what they're
Yeah.
churning out. They're just doing it faster. So
And that
beat them.
And that's what I think is the key there. I think the people are going to become even more discerning around quality because they know. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, like when Google updates their latest algorithm and they go, okay, we're going to hunt out AI content and we're going to make sure that it's quality. I think buyers are going to have that algorithm in their head very soon, where they're going to go, hey, listen, I know you can churn out this stuff. The tools are there. So where's the depth? I think it's going to come to
Right.
quality and depth. It's going to show out like it always does.
Yeah.
But up to now, you've probably been able to get away with it sometimes a little bit where people aren't as aware. But I think people are going to be more discerning going forward.
Yeah. Another example of your buyer requires this of you, right?
Yeah.
You've got to do more than just do a quick,
Yeah.
quick prompt in GPT and get a couple of data points and off you go, right? It's because they'll be asking us questions like, did you create this, or
Yeah.
do you really have this experience, or right? So buyers they're very smart. Um, they're on to us when we're trying to cut corners.
Hmm.
And so I think it's good news for the sales profession, people that take preparation seriously and really seek to understand, who ask questions, who listen closely, who really, really are trying to understand what their customers are trying to achieve. They're going to win. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the tools are, right?
Yeah.
They're always going to be the ones who win.
And your experience, because at the end of the day, I mean, the most valuable thing that I get from any sales interaction, any salesperson who contacts me or anything, is what I want to know is what they've done with other people. Surprise me, right? Not just the basics of what you can do, but surprise me on, how have you been innovative with other customers? And AI is not going to do that for you.
No, no, and until you've got a little, you build your own little LLM that's following you
Yeah.
around and like spoils the conversation because it's putting out stuff before you even get a chance to tell it, right? But
Yeah.
no, I think that's an important point. It's so again, good news for the profession. We can be that much more efficient. We can be better prepared, but it's still the anticipating that you want to hear. It's the unanticipated solution
Yeah.
sometimes, right? It's you want to hear, how did you help this other organization get an outcome that looks a lot or sounds a lot like the one we want.
Hmm.
That's we're patching together stories from multiple different places, and you
Yeah.
didn't even anticipate this was going to come up. So thank heaven there's still a place for us.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I like you, and like you've outlined from some of your stories there, I think quality is going to win out in the end. And I think you intelligent leveraging of technology along with the quality and experience, I think this could be a bright future for you. So
Let's hope, John. Let's
yeah.
hope.
All right. Well, listen, thanks again, Matt. Before you go, just remind people again what you do and how they can contact you. I mean, all
Sure.
your information will be below this video, but anyway.
Wonderful. Well, then click below for sure. But you can find me. Easiest place to find me is LinkedIn. Matt McDarby. I'm the president of United Sales Resources, and 15 years focused on developing sales managers and leaders of leaders so they can be really effective in leading change and helping their people to develop and become highly effective. So you learn some things about something when you focus on it for 15 years. So I welcome people to connect and would love to have a conversation
Yeah, and by
anytime.
the way, it's a good distinction because you'll have a lot of people who will say they can train your sales people, and they'll throw the sales leaders into that whole mix. It's a different thing entirely to focus on the sales leaders. And as we've always said, your biggest revenue multiplier is a good sales leader.
Yeah. Yeah. So good news. There's still demand for what we do. We're
Yeah.
still here. Excited for year 15. So
All right. Well, hopefully you'll be coming back, sometime later in the year, and it'll all be good news. So, listen, thanks again, Matt. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks.